Thank you very much. That takes us on then to section 7 of the agenda, which is applications for detailed presentation. Item 7.1 is 8 Bainfield Drive, Edinburgh. We've had a request for a hearing on this item from Councillor Corbett, but first of all we'll have a presentation from the Chief Planning Officer.
Convener, could we have a...
a 5-minute break. We've been sitting for a couple hours sort of thing, so past will be fine. Okay, so thank you. I think we've still got quite a bit of business to get through, so I'd like to reconvene. Veronica.
Thanks, Convener. Item 7.1 is the 8 Bainfield Drive, Edinburgh planning application. Just a reminder that we've had a request for a hearing from Ward Councillor Corbett, and we'll now have a presentation from the Chief Planning Officer.
Okay, thank you. Bainfield Drive, west of Youforth Bridge. So this is a proposal for 5 boat moorings on the Union Canal. This is the site outlined in red there. So what we have on the site is the new Boroughmuir High School. The entrance to that is here, and we have student accommodation here. The moorings are marked in red here, so it's on the north side of the Union Canal. We have some residential moorings on the other side of the canal, and we have a mixture of flats in Horn Terrace on the south side of the canal there. So, as I said, the proposal is for a hotel development. 5 barges would be placed on the site, and these would be used for tourist accommodation or commercial accommodation. That's the layout of the 5 barges there along that north edge of the Union Canal. That's what it looks like just now. So as a bit of background, this hard edge to the Union Canal was formed fairly recently. In 2016, Scottish Canals got ancient monument consent to form that hard edge and also to put some mooring services in. I think you can maybe just make out little pipes coming up in areas like this, and that was for the proposed new moorings. That is basically the layout of a berth. So each one would be for 4 people, a sort of living area, kitchen, bathroom, double bedroom and a bunk room. So each takes 4 people. So the key considerations are set out there. So I'll just go through what the various issues are. So there's various policies and non-statutory guidance which apply. The first is the Edinburgh Local Development Plan City Centre Proposal Designation CC3 Development Principles for Fountain Bridge. It complies with this policy as it will provide a commercial leisure use for visitors. It will add positively to the streetscape and canalscape through its attractive boat frontage. It will safeguard nature conservation as it does not affect any reed bank or nesting birds, and it will enhance the appearance of a currently visually empty part of the canal. Now, the development is also subject to LDP Policy MP10 on hotel developments and also the Council's Union Canal Strategy, which dates from 2011, and the Fountain Bridge Development Brief from 2005. The latter 2 are not statutory LDP policies, but they are material planning considerations. Now, it complies with Policy MP10 on the location of hotel development as it is close to the city centre and has good public transport links. Policy DES 10 of the LDP, that covers waterside development, and that states that permission will only be granted at the Union Canal where it provides an attractive frontage or improves public access to and along the water's edge, maintains and enhances the water environment, nature conservation or landscape interest, and if appropriate, promotes recreational use of the water. The proposal has no adverse impacts in terms of this policy. Public access along the water's edge is maintained, although there will now be boats in the water. Now, the Union Canal Strategy from 2011 identified 6 canal hubs throughout its length eastwards from Ratho, and one of those hubs is the Lochrin Basin, Hub 6, and part of which is part of this application. This identifies residential moorings on the south side of the canal, but not on this north side, where it indicates potential to extend marginal vegetation. However, since this strategy was adopted, the canal edge on this side has been made hard with associated moorings and is therefore suitable for the accommodation of boats. It is accepted that the current proposal does not comply with the strategy in this respect, but this does not reflect the current situation, and the strategy is, from that aspect, out of date. Now, the Fountain Bridge development brief recognised that the creation of a new urban quarter involving mixed-use development was promoted for this area, and the regeneration of Fountain Bridge has the potential to make the Union Canal and Lochrin Basin a major visitor tourist destination. So that's the sort of policy background. Other issues that have been raised are amenity issues. The hotel boats will be moored on the north bank, some 20 metres from the school front door and across an open, hard landscaped area. The school curtilage is protected by a barrier of planters and a movable gate. Beyond this is public open space. The towpath lies between the boats and the open space and is a thoroughfare used by many walkers, cyclists and runners. So it's already an area where there's a lot of activity. Environmental protection does not support the application on the grounds of potential vocal disturbance from boat hotel users and the boats being only 10 metres from residential accommodation in Horn Terrace across the canal. With little space on boats, environmental protection is concerned about people using the towpath, especially in the evening, for smoking and socialising. It says it should be exacerbated where group bookings occur. The accommodation is geared towards families in the small and scale. Antisocial behaviour is a matter for the police. It cannot be controlled by any effective and enforceable planning conditions, whether tourist moorings or hotel moorings. This is a central location where such a use is acceptable and where a degree of disturbance may be expected. So we do feel the policy complies with DES 5 of the Local Development Plan. Now, the Scottish Canal's mooring site options appraisal, which is not a statutory document but it is a material consideration, does illustrate Scottish Canal's commitment to achieving a reasonable balance of commercial and residential uses on the canal. This shows 5 visitor berths allocated. The planned mix of different types of boats along the canal will assist in achieving a beneficial mix of uses which will support the community in and around the canal. So the balance of commercial and residential uses is set out in the documents that I've already mentioned, and the proposals will add a vibrant resource which will support the commercial community in the long run. So we're recommending approval.
Okay, so with that, questions for Nancy, representing the Chief Planning Officer today. Alex.
I do have a question, but I also have a question of order. Should we be deciding on whether or not we want the hearing before questions to officers?
So it won't be a loaded question, but if it will help you to determine whether we need a hearing or not, then I'm informed that that would be okay.
Oh, and just, it's a general question on DES 10. On waterside development, it says planning permission will only be granted where the proposals, where appropriate, maintains, provides or improves public access to and along the water's edge. Now, how do you feel this application meets that requirement?
Yeah, well, we've got the water's edge already in place. This is a narrow bit of the canal. It's not an area where you can use it for recreational facilities. I think one of the areas that people were commenting on is it stops maybe a pontoon being put in place for the use of the school. So I don't think we feel it's restricting access to the canal. It's just adding another element into the use of the canal. But people are still able to walk along the towpath. There won't be anything put in place to stop them moving along the towpath.
Harold?
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much, Nancy, for your presentation. I just had a query about the servicing of these boats. I was a little confused by this hut and where the hut was, and there seemed to be how the boats were actually going to be serviced. There was something along the lines of they were going to have a hut or a placement somewhere where things were going to be taken out and with and from, that they were going to service first. I was a little unsure about what that actually meant.
I don't know where the hut is, but there was a design statement submitted with the application, which is available online. So that says no vehicle access will be required. The boats will require fresh linen at point of changeover. We intend to hire a part-time cleaner who will be supplied with a small trolley to carry linen and other supplies that may be required. These supplies will be kept in a storage unit which will be located in the centre of Edinburgh. So that is the information that we have. I don't see what else you could do. I mean, I don't think there's a place for a hut, although you can see little huts there, can't you? But I don't know if one of these huts is going to be used.
Considering there are several boats here and there could be several users at any one given time that might have it for one night or two nights, I suppose a query being, if this was a guest house or was somewhere else, would we find that acceptable? I'm a little unsure of where this lies. I appreciate they're two different things, but it's to do with the fact of requirement of servicing some things. We have to look at how that's going to be serviced. Is that acceptable?
I suppose, I hate using the words Airbnb, but when you think about those, people come in and service those short-stay commercial leisure units, don't they? I mean, all the facilities aren't necessarily there on site. People come in and they provide a service to change the beds and everything, but all the stuff isn't located within the house.
But they tend to drive to the place, or they tend to arrive in a vehicle. I suppose what I'm getting to is the fact that I'm a little confused of how these are actually going to be serviced, which could be on a daily basis, and there are 6 of them. So that's all I can remember. It might just be one property. These are more than one property.
I'm not quite sure how much a planning issue this is, because, I mean, we've been told that there will be someone who comes and services the boats on a daily basis. They won't be driving there. There will be a trolley. This is a location quite near the city centre. So, you know, we have to accept that that is the business model that these applicants have in place. This is a company who have other boat hotels, so they're well used to doing that sort of servicing.
Okay, I've got George and then I've got Councillor Mount.
I just wanted clarification on actually toileting. To be honest with you, they suggest they're going to use composting to actually use as effluent. Now, normally, when you have a normal barge, you can then empty that via going to the other side of it, starting an engine and moving out to actually an area where it can be disposed of. How can this happen with this hotel?
In the design statement, there is an item called foul waste, if you'd like me to read that out. The boats will be installed with electric incinerator toilets, which will be emptied at time of cleaning changeover. Each cassette will hold up to 2 weeks' worth of waste in the form of ash. We anticipate the average length of stay to be less than this, but if someone is staying for longer and the cassette needs to be changed, the applicant will arrange for our cleaner to take care of this. By using the system, the boats will not be required to move to a pump-out station, as would otherwise be the case. Is that okay?
At least the question that goes back to Hal's point is that going to be serviced with a very narrow exiting? They're now taking, you know, bedding, linen, cleaning, ash now, so it's a... Well,
it's a cassette, as I said. There'll be a cassette. I presume on the trolley there will be a space for the cassette, but I don't know the logistics of it all, and I'm not quite sure it's necessarily something that we need to think about too much. I mean, we've got this statement that they will be serviced. Is it really a material planning consideration, the logistics of whether the toilet will be emptied properly or not?
My fear is it's discharged into the actual canal, and that's why I'm asking these questions. And you know, having rung swans for many years, I've seen that happening with a lot of barges, and I have more concern regarding the fact that it's a service apartment that's unsupervised, and that's why I'm a bit concerned about that.
Well, it is, yes. I mean, the point is they need a licence from Scottish Canals. I mean, they have to manage it in accordance with the instructions from Scottish Canals, so they won't be able to discharge it into the canal.
Right, thank you. So, Councillor Mowat and then Chaz.
Thank you, Convener. We don't appear to have had a consultation from the Canals Champion, as we do have a Canals Champion in the Council. I would have thought this would have been quite good. And now it may be tucked away in the 364 comments that there is, but it would be, I mean, my preference on this going forward, I'll just say this now because it'll save me saying anything else later, is that we actually site visit this, because I don't think the committee has been down to this area since the school has been opened as a planning committee. And I just think it would be helpful to see that, and given that a lot of the representations raised are by parents and about how that would use, I think I would be more comforted by seeing that in situ, and that would maybe also give us an opportunity to dig out that representation and append it to the report when it came back. I'm sure they will have done one, but it would have been nice to have seen that, you know, in the consultations bit of the paper.
Do we have any further questions? Obviously, the site visit's been raised, but let's deal with any further questions. So, John.
Thanks, Convener. Just a question for Nancy, just further to what Councillor Gordon was asking, is that obviously liquid waste won't incinerate too well. And I just wondered what the arrangements were for that. It's my understanding from previous applications that Scottish Water have made that essentially what you have is almost a slopping out process where there is regular servicing. That's fine, but it's waste materials are taken from the barges and moved elsewhere and disposed of. Now, I think the committee might take a view on whether or not that kind of activity is appropriate on a bit of a stretch of the canal towpath that's right next to a school.
What was the question?
Liquid waste.
Liquid waste.
What the hell do you do with it?
Do you not use the toilet in the normal way?
Yes, but the point is that there's a limited capacity, that it's not piped in, it accumulates, it has to be disposed of because it's on a boat. You either do one of two things, you either accumulate it and take it away, or you let it into the canal.
Right. The only information I have is that each cassette can hold up to 2 weeks' worth of waste in the form of ash.
Liquid waste has a problem with burning it, though.
Yeah. This application is proving more problematic than I anticipated. And there's two things that may need to be addressed, and that's possibly a site visit, but I don't know that that's going to answer everything because, and so there may need to be a hearing for the applicant to be able to answer some of these questions, because I don't think we've got enough information here, sadly.
We can get it continued if you tell.
I'd be reluctant to have a hearing just because of pragmatic reasons, but if all the questions can be given to Nancy and she can get answers from the applicant, if that would work. But I think there's sort of been a request for site visits. I'll take a vote on that as well. I think that's probably the best thing to do. So if we can collect any further questions, John's and George have asked a couple. So just to clarify, liquid waste and the ash, and where although it may not be a pertinent planning point, but where the stuff's stored and how it's brought to site. Is there any further questions that members would like answered? Chaz?
Thanks, Gavin. It may not be possible to answer this, but I note that environmental protection don't support the application on the grounds of noise. Has any consideration been to whether it's possible to mitigate against the potential noise? I suspect the answer may be no, but I wonder whether that question has been asked.
Okay, well, we've got a letter from Scottish Canals, which I'm sure is online amongst all the other comments. I'll just get that and I can tell you what it says. I mean, they're basically saying because the hotel operator will need a licence if it comes to any situation where there is unsatisfactory behaviour on the part of tenants of the hotel, then they would be able to take action. So it says, we strictly manage all moorings in line with our standard terms and conditions outlined in the Boating on Scotland's Canal Licence and Moorings booklet. The terms and conditions sit alongside a trading agreement that will stipulate clauses that are specific to this type of operation. This will allow us to ensure that the lease of the hotel boats cannot be assigned to a third party without Scottish Canal's approval. This ensures that the boat hotel operates in a professional and satisfactory manner, whilst also allowing Scottish Canals to enforce restrictions on the type of customer that the hotel boat can accommodate, such as no group bookings that may attract antisocial behaviour. So basically, if that occurs, then they could lose their licence.
George, I think you had a further question.
It was to do with licensing. Mainly, it's can they condition arrival and departure dates, times within a licence, because it's a big play made in it. They will only be arriving during school visiting time and after the school is gone. I'd like to get that clarified if possible.
Certainly can't control that under the planning system. We couldn't condition that, but you know, I think it is quite difficult to put restrictions on when people can arrive and leave. And you know, even if people were arriving as the school was going in, it's a very wide towpath. There's plenty of room for people to get out a taxi or whatever and arrive at the boat without causing too much disturbance. I think you can see from the photograph how wide that towpath is. So I don't think from a planning viewpoint it's a problem if people arrive or leave at the same time as the school's going in and out.
Okay, John.
Just yeah, as I said before, and declare an interest in someone that lives along the canal side. I think it's important to remember that Scottish Canals regard the canal as a commercial asset to be exploited, and that therefore they see it basically as anything can go along the canal side. So, but if you flip it on its head, you have to ask yourself a question: Would you normally allow a hotel or a small guest house to be constructed there right in front of the school's front gate? And I think it's often the way with the canal that because it's the canal, therefore it must be acceptable. But in actual fact, what you're doing is creating developments that just happen to be floating rather than fixed developments. But the principles for those who use nearby should be exactly the same, really. And I feel that sometimes Scottish Canals take a rather more relaxed view about what can be done alongside the canal as opposed to any other stretches nearby. So I mean, I have a lot of concerns about this development per se, notwithstanding the practicalities of how you get waste in and out of those boats.
I'm not sure there's a question there. In fact, there wasn't really one, and we are now in danger of going into debate. So I want to take a vote on the site visit because that's something that Councillor Mowat had moved, and then we can bring it back to committee. So,
can we also have a vote on a hearing? It has been proposed, and
let's do that now, and then it's clearer. So let's do them sequentially.
Sorry, and just for clarity, so if we go on the site visit, we don't have a hearing, but we'll still be able to get additional information. Thank you.
Yes, because Nancy will be able to answer any questions pertinent to the site visit, plus the questions that have already been asked, which we don't have sufficient information. So that's a good point. Thank you. So, I'm being advised by Veronica to take the hearing one first. Is
anybody minded to have a Okay, those in favour of having a hearing?
Could I propose it? Could I explain why I think we should have a hearing?
You can do.
Thank you. I think we should have a hearing because there are a great number of comments on this application. I think the local community organisations that have commented have a right to be heard, as does the developer about it. And I also think it's very telling that the councillor who has requested the hearing isn't just the ward councillor, but is also the canal champion. So I would ask committee to take the request for a hearing very seriously indeed. I do think that the people involved in this should have a right to be heard by this committee, not just via written word.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Staniforth's proposal to have a hearing? Councillor Gordon. Okay, all those against the hearing?
Sorry,
Oh,
just
sorry,
a second. Did you want to verbally speak?
Sorry, Councillor Gordon.
I would like to have verbally spoke. I'm in two minds about the hearing, but I think backed with a site visit, I think that would be really helpful because there is a lot of objections on this. I have real concerns as to what's going on with this. The Canal Champion is ready to speak to us regarding it, to answer some of the questions already answered, so I'd be supportive of having a hearing.
Is someone going to propose not having a hearing?
Can I just check something? Obviously, if we have a site visit or a hearing, we will continue this. So can we just check that we don't fall foul of its length of application, whatever it's called, which I completely forget.
Non-determination. I think we're way past that. Yeah. Let me just double check. Yeah, 28. Yes, we're past the period where they can appeal on the grounds of non-determination.
So, sorry, councillors, are you proposing not to have a hearing? Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor Child. So, motion by Councillor Staniforth, seconded by Councillor Gordon, is to have a hearing. The amendment by Councillor Osler, seconded by Councillor Child, is not to have a hearing. Could I have all those for the amendment not to have a hearing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 6. And all those for having a hearing? That's 3. So we're not having a hearing, and we now just need... Sorry. Yeah, did I not count properly, or did somebody not have their hand up?
Let's do it again.
I'll do it again. Okay. The motion by Councillor Gordon, the motion by Councillor Staniforth, seconded by Councillor Gordon, is to have a hearing. The amendment by Councillor Osler, seconded by Councillor Child, is not to have a hearing. Could I have all those for the amendment by Councillor Child? By Councillor Osler, sorry, seconded by Councillor Child. It has. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Dennis,
do you have your hand up, Councillor Dixon? Okay, 1. Sorry. That was for having a hearing. Sorry, that was against having a hearing.
Dennis, you want to abstain?
Okay. Who is against having a hearing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And who is for having a hearing? That's 3.
Is that it, no?
So we've determined that we're not having a hearing. We now need to decide whether we're going on a site visit or not.
I'm happy to propose Maureen can second. Is everybody happy with that?
So just for clarity, the application is continued for a site visit. Okay, that takes us on then to presentation requests, item 4.3.